Participants.
Okay, being recorded.
So hello, everybody. I'm Kathy Haley. I'm Vice President of the Northern Region of the Poetry Society of Virginia. And manning the chat and the Zoom, we have Steve Booker of the North Central Region. Give a wave, Steve, for
Hi,
anybody
everybody.
who doesn't know. We are continuing our series with the new focus, still celebrating PSV's centennial year with monthly readings called Virginia Voices, to remember why we came together in PSV in the first place, share how we as individuals approach poetry, and connect with our community statewide. And this is the fourth session, I believe, of our new format, where we include a young poet in the community or another youth or young adult poet to join in with a more established PSV poet. We go on the second Wednesday of each month at 5:30 and ask the same questions and ask the poets to read 3 poems. So today we feature Zoe Lee, a 14-year-old who will be attending high school in the fall in Fredericksburg, Virginia. She enjoys expressing herself in words and music. She likes to read and write in her free time. When she's not writing, she can be found playing the violin or the piano. And we have Ed Lull. Ed Lull's first career was a Navy submarine officer. His second was government contractor. In retirement, he joined a beginning poetry workshop and at age 67 began writing poetry. He served 4 terms as PSV president. Ed published 7 books of poetry and is editor of the PSV Centennial Anthology. So, Zoe, I'm going to ask you if you would like to start with a poem or if you would like to have a couple more minutes of relaxation, and should I ask Ed to go first?
I guess I'll start with the poem then.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
1 minute, let me get it.
Kathy, I have this big sign in the middle of my thing here. This meeting is being recorded.
Click OK. Or got it.
Got it. Okay.
Got it. Yes, click that and it will go away.
My first trick was to push it on the screen. Okay.
Everybody good?
We're good.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, Zoe, what do you have for us?
So my poem is titled Monotony, and I will be reading it for you today.
Wonderful.
So, today, it's the same view again. The blank-faced scarecrows, a rusted tractor, endless yellow fields. I glance over at the calendar hanging off the wall of the faded barn house. The date highlighted in red, July 18th, 2004. The sun comes up as usual, 7:30. I trudge over to the rusted tractor to get to work. The sun passes overhead, sweat drips down from my forehead. I look up to the skies and spot a round object coming down overhead. I gape, then head towards it. Down, down, down it comes until it hits the ground. Before speaking, who are you? Sorry, 1 minute. I wait until the rider gets out. Before speaking, who are you? Now that the object has landed, I can see it more clearly. It is dish shaped with a smooth round top. I have already concluded that it is an alien vessel. However, the exact mechanics puzzle me. Blarg, the creature says, looking just as befuddled as me. It slowly backs away, then it re-enters its ship and flies away. I watch it disappear with a mystified expression. Then I get back to work. A roar resounds from farther ahead of me. I rush over. As I look, I spot a large red beast crouching on the ground. The beast rises up from its position to look at me with an expression of bemusement. Before I can do anything, it disappears into thin air. I once again look on, mystified. I get back to work. I felt a slight tapping on my shoulder, but I ignore it. The tapping is persistent. I turn around, but no one's there. I gasp and touch my knee. I had no time to be alarmed, though, for it was dark outside. I headed back to the house and flopped into my bed. Well, I thought, such strange things are. The next morning, I woke up like usual. The same blank-faced scarecrows and rusted tractor greet me when I head outside. The sun comes up as usual, 7:30. I glance once again to the calendar hanging off the wall of the barn house. The date highlighted in red. July 18th, 2004. I wonder when this dreary cycle will end. I should get ready for the alien first.
Wonderful. I love the narrative style that you have in this poem, and just the connection between alien spaceships and poetry. It's a wonderful connection. And Zoe, why don't you tell us about how you got involved with the PSV?
Well, I first got involved by my focus teacher, or she's a gifted and talented teacher. She sent all the kids in her email group the big poster for your contest. And so I thought that might be fun, and I applied, and I managed to get in. And then after that, I ended up really enjoying poetry, so I started doing more things related.
That's fantastic. I'm glad that that was one of the things that spurred you on to doing more poetry. Ed, let's hear a poem from you.
Well, my first poem here was inspired by a nice walk down Duke of Gloucester Street on the 4th of July. It's entitled Where Giants Walked. A stroll on this historic street provokes an awesome sense that here they met and talked. The sunlight filters through majestic oaks as reverently I walk where giants walked. We call them patriots of times long gone, Virginians all they shared a common dream. Their forebears set a standard whereupon the sons made freedom their enduring theme. The capital from 1699 for 80 years through peace and joy and fear, this city, Williamsburg, remained a shrine of liberty evolving year by year. As foreign rule increasingly inflamed the spark of revolutionary thought, Virginia's leaders forcefully proclaimed that they would not be bullied nor be bought. When Jefferson and Henry, Mason, Bland, and Washington, the Randolphs and the Lees, and Harrison and Braxton were on hand, the city hosted greatness, freedom's keys. Resounding oratory filled the air, the Capitol intense with fervent sound. Debate resumed at Raleigh's Tavern, where the seeds of freedom fell on fertile ground. The risks were high, but passion for their goal defeated fear that lesser men sustained. They formed a union with both heart and soul, a gallant victory that brave men gained. This sojourn down Colonial Promenade recalls for me how these men earned renown, commitment to their cause and faith in God, where giants walked in Williamsburg, their town.
Beautiful. I happen to have just driven through Williamsburg on the way back from the beach a couple days ago. It's a great reminder, and Boy, the restaurant we stopped at and met my niece was Kefi, a Greek restaurant. I recommend it to all of you. A commercial for the day. Beautiful. I like the way that you use history and bring it home to your own region, and kind of give us a little bit more of an intimate picture.
Excuse me a minute. I've got to get this phone off.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So Ed, why don't you tell us about how you got to PSV? Like, we heard your story in your bio in terms of what came before, but once you started in that poetry workshop, how did you get connected to the Poetry Society of Virginia?
Sure. Well, Rita Durant was ran the Christopher Wren workshop that's got me started anyway, and then she also was head of the Williamsburg Poetry Guild, and at the end of the class, the 3 or 4 month class that we had, she invited me to to read for the guild, and so I did. Two of us were invited from the class to come and read, and we were both invited to join the guild, and it was a great group of poets that were in there. I really feel that, you know, a lawful push was given me by those people. And another thing that Rita Durant was the vice president for the Eastern region of the Poetry Society of Virginia. Needless to say, she dragged me into the Poetry Society, a willing partner though to come in, and that's what really got me into the Poetry Society. And shortly, a little later, anyway, her term expired, and she convinced me to run for the office she was in, which I did, and wound up being the vice president for the Eastern region. And then I won't drag this on, but 4 years after I first attended a Christopher Wren Association thing, I was elected president of the Poetry Society of Virginia, and was reelected for 4 terms. So anyway.
Well, we have a lot to thank you for. That's a big commitment to do a vice president stint for 4 years and then 4 terms as president. Absolutely. Applause. Applause for you. Okay. Zoe, let's go back to you and have you do a poem for us.
Okay.
And we talked about short poems. In case you have 2 real short ones, you're welcome to do 2 now. Either that or you can do 1. And at the end, we'll just continue with poems until we run out of time.
All right.
Either way.
I think I'll do 1 now, and then just, let's see. All right. I have entitled this one, but I would like to read it for you today. Sorry.
Okay, that's great.
It slips out. Words that are taboo, elect, forbidden, never to be spoken, between us. A ringing sound in my ears, the roller coaster feeling in my stomach. Not yet realizing, hoping, but not knowing. Your reaction, the dry summer sun setting into the abyss of night. Your face, shadowed and dark, the dry air suffocating me as my heart beats faster, faster. Cold sweat covering me and my knees trembling with fear and anticipation. Memories of similar situations, bowed choking, my throat tight, and words unable to come out. Though it's strange, each and every time, I thought the past had flown away like a monarch butterfly in autumn. Brightness and warmth gone, but the scenery otherwise unchanged. This time I went too far, and the aftermath feels cold and completely barren. And as apologies fail to leave my lips, my heart needing the relief of the words I'm sorry, the weight of the guilt growing heavier in my chest, when like a limp piece of spinach, I can't seem to spit it out. And as I peer at your face in the evening light, searching for a smirk or a leer, I'm met with a grimace, tears staining your cheeks, the right corner of your mouth twitching, and I know that it's over for good.
Wow, powerful emotions and lots of imagery that really makes us feel it. Thank you. So I was just going to tell you that there's a technique that Ted Kooser uses that might serve you even maybe in the interim, and perhaps you'll think of the perfect title, but sometimes Ted Kooser suggests that you use the first line as the title and just, you read it continuously. In other words, you just read the title and on into the poem. So there's still a space in between, but it's just that first line doubles as title and first line of the poem. So maybe that would work for you.
Maybe that would.
It slips out, right? That's the first line.
Yep.
Yeah. So you never know. So Ed, how about another poem for you?
Sure. Being in the Navy, I did something that before this that I had never done before. I counted the number of times that on a Navy ship that I went across an ocean, either the Atlantic or the Pacific. And I was amazed that the answer was 19 times. I've been across 10 across the Atlantic and 9 across the Pacific. So anyway, that I got to see a lot of strange things at sea, and my next poem has to do with that. It's entitled "The Gale." Just a quick one on the first line of this. It relates back to an old navigator saying, red sky in the morning, sailor, take warning. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Okay. Scarlet sky at sunup forewarns the seasoned observer. Majestic, towering clouds, silver-lined, growing. Sun dissolves into tougher, troubled heavens. Rain starts downward, then sideways, bullied by lashing random gusts. A battle rages here. Somber hues foretell the risk to interlopers who might dare to venture onto this battlefield. A private fight, superior strength of the sky challenging the sovereign supremacy of the sea. Birds have known the fury of this strife before. Their flight confused, fear fills their eyes. They want to flee. There will be no escape for them today, for they are chosen witnesses to see the conflict to its end. Angry clouds reach down to smite the waves and demand surrender. The sea responds with roiling hills, their silver windblown manes reflecting their disdain. The struggle continues into the night. Darkness makes the war grow more intense. Both sides put inexhaustible power on display. Massive sea swells heave ever upward. The sky replies with brilliant streaks and roaring, rumbling blasts. Thunderbolts intimidate all except the sea.
Beautiful.
The next day dawns.
Oh, sorry.
Some drifting clouds, still dripping night, blow by, exposing a sparkling sun-filled sky. The sea a peaceful pool. How did the conflict end? Only the winged observers know, and they can never tell.
Beautiful, Ed. My apologies for the interruption. When you paused, I thought maybe that was the last line. Beautiful alliteration and rhyme, maybe internal rhyme, I think, in addition to
Now and then, yes, a
Yeah.
little bit.
yeah. So
But
and-
it lent itself to an awful lot of good alliteration.
yes, absolutely, especially with the S. Thank you so much. So Ed, tell us, we've heard two different poems from you, one more historical, one more experiential, I guess, but still full of like, I mean, I feel like I learn from your poems because they're not experiences that I've had. So that's wonderful as well. Well, what would you say is your approach to poetry, or how do you describe yourself as a poet?
I really got into being a storyteller. My poems are usually telling some sort of a story in some way or other. And anyway, I've always thought of it since I started as whether you're trying to make a point, writing an essay, telling a joke. What do they all have in common? It's communication, and poetry fits. I try to avoid concealing a message through tricky structures or confusing diction. I like the people, if they're nice enough to listen, to understand what the heck I'm talking about. So anyway, storytelling, fact or fiction, short or long, form or free. I am involved with all, I do all those, and themes, historic events, personal experience, family, nature. They've all of them been in there. The form poetry I got into, and I did enjoy that a lot. And
Do you have a couple of favorite forms that you like to write in, or?
Yes.
Ah.
Can you get this? I don't know where.
Oh, I see all of those, in other words. Wow.
Yeah, these are about 32 forms, and it's a how-to book on writing form poetry, and it covers 32 different forms, and it was fun doing the research for it, and I thought about, of course, having an example of every type in there. And when I thought about the way I've seen it done in the past, they get someone a favorite name or something to have their poem in there. And I thought, if I had to find 32 and get permission to use their thing, I thought, anyway, if I can write how to, I better do it. So every poem that's in here I wrote. So
Well,
I did have good experience. But in your question, the English sonnet or Shakespearean sonnet or Elizabethan sonnet, all the same. I really have written a fair number of those, and I usually, unless it's in a workshop where I'm writing a sonnet, because the prompt says write a sonnet, I often get into writing a sonnet to express something that wasn't a prompt. It fell nicely into the realm of the sonnet. But some of them are much harder than others to write. But there are a lot of them that are not very complicated, but if you're going to write in the form, follow the form and force your talents to stay with the form without losing the meaning of what you're doing.
Right. Right. That can be a challenge at times.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of contemporary poets like to only take on certain elements of a form and then kind of go their own way. And that can be fun too.
One other quick one. My first book is this one, which I don't think you might be able to see.
Cabin Boy.
Cabin Boy to Captain.
Captain. Very good.
And I started this book, and after I had a couple of workshops and 2 years experience, but I wanted to do it in blank verse. And I thought, well, if John Milton could do it, if William Shakespeare could do it, I can do it. After all, I have 2 years experience. But anyway, I make fun of myself, but I do. And this is it's a good, exciting book. It's based on, it's a historical novel told in blank verse. And blank verse is easy to work with. When you get into it, if you get through past page 1, you can stick with it because it's rolling pretty well for you.
They say iambic
pentameter, yeah.
Well, pentameter or just iambic verse is
yes,
it's natural in the English language. So
yes, it really is. And this has 4,400 lines of iambic pentameter.
Better you than me, Ed. So let me go to Zoe and ask you, Zoe, to tell us a little bit about how you see yourself as a poet, and if there are any connections with Ed, point them out, and if not, that's okay too.
I think for me, I'm a bit different from Mr. Lull in that I don't really write about experience I've had myself, but I have a more escapist approach to poetry. So I like writing about things that I haven't experienced and I'd like to imagine and make more real to myself.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yes.
And in order to do that, do you find yourself doing any research, or is it mostly just research within your imagination?
More research within my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, kind of in my first poem, I did, you know, the movie Groundhog's Day.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of base poem. And so I tried to imagine what it would be like to be someone who experiences a loop over and over and how they get used to such strange things happening all the time, and tried to express that in my poem.
Yeah. Well done. Okay. So let's go on, Zoe, and I'll ask you to talk about so, you know, as a young poet in the community, you actually worked with the program twice now, right? So you're doing different kinds of projects, and you're writing your own poetry, and you know, it's put you in touch with a little bit more of a poetry community, I guess, even if it's through Zoom rather than in person. What do you think would be a good idea for the direction of the Poetry Society in order to keep more young people involved, to keep you involved over a long term, to get more young people to get involved in the organization? What do you think would be a good idea for how we could see ourselves moving into the future?
That's a bit of a difficult question.
I
For
realize.
me, myself personally, this is kind of idealistic and a bit off topic, but I would really like to see like a really big poetry festival in Virginia. That would really excite me. But for your question in general,
Mhm.
I think maybe more projects, maybe a bit more outreach. The Poetry Society feels a bit more closed in at the moment. Mm, that's about it on my part.
No, those are all really good ideas. I appreciate that. And Ed, how about you?
Well, it's right along with what Zoe said there. One of the things that I'd like to see done is getting more returning to a close relationship with VATE, the Virginia Association of Teachers of English, which I always was, when I was president, I was always attending their annual thing. And I gave myself as a prize. They had a drawing, and every year they asked me, "Do you want to be a prize?" I said, "Sure." And the prize is, of course, that I would visit their school and do a presentation at their school, which I did, and it was a ball. I mean, I really, and I have done presentations for first graders all the way to 12th graders, and probably a little different poems.
Sure. Sure.
But anyway, yeah. It's a wonderful experience if you can get over a little nervousness, but if you get over that, it's and they sense it, they're going to come back and forth with you.
Yeah.
Well, the first one that I did was a group of fifth graders, and when when I asked, "Do you have any questions?" I'd say 90% of hands.
Right. Right.
And the girls were more interested in certain things in the poetry, and the boys wanted to tell them about life in a submarine.
Right. I can
But
imagine.
anyway, maintaining, rejuvenating and maintaining a good relationship with VATE might be a good opportunity anyway. And no matter what you do, you'll meet some awfully nice people that way. And another thing that caught my attention. Oh yes, she talked about. I think Zoe mentioned going a little more outreach.
Mhm.
Well, what I would like to see, to be more specific on it, is tasking the regional vice presidents to scour their region. They don't have to drive everywhere. They got phones, they got computers, but uncover every small to large workshops that are going, or regular presentations that are being done and all, and see if they don't. And first, before doing that, you have to come up with some sort of a goodie, because if you're going to try and attract them to join the Poetry Society of Virginia, particularly as a group, what do you think they'll say? Why?
Right.
What is going to happen for us that we aren't doing right now? So anyway, you have to come up with some pretty solid stuff, I think, to attract. But I think that's I think we have a lot of. I've seen people show up at a festival or something that are not even members, and yet they're poets, and they're on the loose.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is true. And I think that over the time that I've been involved with PSV, there have been, different initiatives to try to, give a list of reasons to join. And I think we need to be a little bit more consistently working at that and publicizing it more.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And Nathan's going to help us with that too.
Nathan draws them like flies.
I can't hear you, but
I said I have a plan.
yes,
which actually includes the marketing plan. I hate to interrupt, but
okay.
both spoke on this. Number one, concerning what you spoke to, Ed, one of the ads in the campaign is the 5 things that reasons you should join the Poetry Society of Virginia. And they are 5 good ones that we came up with. And
that's good.
And then I also wanted Zoe to know that another one of the ads in the campaign is our testimonials, and I'm taking all the testimonials from Virginia Voices, and so I'll certainly be captioning your testimonial, Zoe, and sometime during the year, your testimonial will appear on social. That's why you joined the Poetry Society of Virginia.
All right.
With your permission, of course, but I think
of course, sure,
yeah, appreciative of that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Nathan and I just talked a few days ago, so that's why I knew to call on him.
Well, there's one other thing that I could add, and it isn't something that Zoe would be tied to, but I think we should be canvassing a little more of senior living places and talk to the events coordinators there and make arrangements for doing presentations if they want, whatever.
Yeah.
And they will always draw a group, and because so many of them are lonely,
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me feel good to be able to do that. And I've been doing it before, and in fact, I'm tied up right now with one, and it's a good thing for both sides. Everybody wins on that. And I remember one of the ones I had at the landing here in Williamsburg. There was one fellow that got in first, and as the group was coming in, and he hurried up and got a front row seat. And anyway, as I was preparing, I was sort of giving just a few words and what we do and that sort of thing. And then I was about to do the first poem, and I saw he was sound asleep.
Oh.
And he never woke up.
Oh.
I guess I made his day. He got a good day's sleep out of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, one can't take anything but a fun story out of it. It's good.
Well, thank you for that. Yes. So I think with the time that we have left, that we'll maybe close out with 2 poems each and see how that goes. Steve, what do you think about that plan?
Sounds perfect.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. So Zoe, read the 2 poems that you'd most like to read that you have left in your pile, and then Ed will ask you to do the same. And if there's extra time, then we'll go back for another round.
All right. So the first poem I'll be reading is called Confidence Prevails, and it's a bit different from my normal poems because it's actually based on a real-ish event.
Okay.
Spotlight, glaring brightness. I stand, stomach cramped, on the stage. Hundreds crowd before me, ready for the performance. We go first, then band and chorus. I'm sorry if I'm not what you wanted to see, are my thoughts, but I bow, holding my violin. Then I play. A squeak, I wince. but drag my bow across the string. The music flows, and with it goes my anxiety. The melody passes around the ensemble, fluidly like a calm river. Suddenly it turns, fast-paced and swift. I take lead, all the others cascade after. Next, heavy chords, melancholy and sorrowful, the feeling of regret resounding through the orchestra, underlying every bowstroke. The theme returns again. My violin sings it, bright and clear. My body moves, mimicking the rise of the lyrical section. Then, a dramatic stop, a sudden end. I look out into the crowd. Scattered applause, polite, but all are just waiting for the others and are ignoring us. My fists clench, but I solely feel the elation experienced on stage. Exhilaration battles contempt and wins, so I walk off stage and behind the curtains raise my arms in triumph.
Beautiful. It's really interesting. I love to write about the images I see when I'm listening to music, but this is doubly powerful because you have that and also the experience of playing it and that feeling of, you know, being in control of the tempo and the chords and the theme. I love it.
As you can tell, I really like music.
Yes. Yes, I encourage you to write more about music. But what's your next poem?
My next poem is one that I consider to be my best so far, and it's called The Journey to the Crossroads. And I actually participated in the international poetry competition for the Under the Madness magazine. I think you sent that, Miss Hayden.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
And then, yes, and then so the car rumbles across the gravel. The mountain looming ahead of us. I peer to my side. She sits peacefully, but at the same time with a sense of unrest. Her thin frame seeming young but fragile. Our mother and father look worried in front of us. We drive farther. The rest stop isn't far, I say. She nods, looking out into the distance, as if her mind is untethered, as if she's slowly floating away. Another 5 minutes pass. We make it to the rest stop. I move to get out, but her hand reaches out and grips my wrist. Let's drive a little farther, she says, looking at me with filmy eyes. I hesitate, look up in the front with a nod. I get back into the car. We drive a few more miles. Every time we try to stop, she says, a little more? We continue in that fashion until we get to the top. We get out of the car and look around. The wide blue scenery and the forest background. A vast unknown greets me, the clouds brushing against the tips of trees, an azure blue dome overhead, stretching out for miles and miles. The forest is still a quiet that would make the loudest cicada whisper. Yet a sense of exhilaration fills in me, the vastness welcoming and beautiful. I breathe in the mountain air and urge her to get out. I say, look, you can see everything from here. I reflect back to the road we traveled, then gaze to the welcoming scene, the clouds hanging low in the sky, trying to embrace me. As if reading my thoughts, she smiles at my excitement, but makes no move to get out. If anything, she only snuggles into the seat more. She seems so frail, her smile weak, but her face saying she's at peace. A few ravens fly overhead as I crawl back into the car with her. She reaches out for my hand, and as she grips it, I feel a gentle warmth in my heart, and I can feel her drifting away, her hands getting warmer. Slowly, she closes her eyes.
Wow. What a beautiful portrait of
Very
a
nice.
person and a landscape combined.
Yeah,
Absolutely
that's
gorgeous.
it.
Yeah.
I think our great artist, Terry Cox Joseph, could take that and and put it into a painting.
Painting,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Do you paint at all?
No, I do not.
Do you, Zoe?
I can spill paint, but I can't. Actually, I'm I'm just not drawn that way. I've tried a little bit here and there years ago, and there was no match. The canvas won every time.
Understood. Zoe, do you paint at all or do art, visual arts?
I think along with Mr. Lull, I am also not super artistic in that sense, but I do like using a lot of imagery, so maybe
Yeah.
that makes up for that.
Yes, I agree. You do a great job with imagery. All right, Ed, how about your last
Yeah,
two?
sure. My third one is was inspired by a thought of mine that we don't have. I guess it came about when we got rid of "Carry Me Back to Old Virginia" as a state song, and appropriately it was no, it isn't anymore. But when I found we still don't have one, and we also don't have something called a state poem, I thought, oh, I'll write one.
There you go.
And you're privileged to hear
Thank you.
it. The New Dominion. Both nobly born and common man from England crossed the sea, and thus the Commonwealth began with those who would be free to spread themselves across the land and settle where they could. With hardships greater than they planned, they still found freedom good. From sturdy stock, their leaders grew with independent thought, protecting liberty they knew could not be simply bought. The price was high, but fully paid, as brave men's blood was shed. A nation then was loosely made, Virginia's statesmen led. The Commonwealth's diversity, its greatest attribute, with fishing from the bay and sea and orchards filled with fruit. The Shenandoah farms provide fine food for rich and poor. The massive rivers, long and wide, link Blue Ridge to the shore. The tempo of commercial north contrasts with southern pace. The eastern watermen go forth, a wind-tossed sea to face. A home for all who would be true to those who paved the way. The Old Dominion lives anew, proud gem of USA.
Wonderful. Mark says it should be in the Virginia's travel ads.
I love the title.
What's that?
I like the title.
Oh, the New Dominion.
Yeah.
All right, Ed, close us out with your final poem.
Okay. Just a moment. I have it. I have half of it here. Oh, yeah. It's entitled "The Killer Beast." Now, don't get scared. My steps were halting on this somber night as autumn breezes made the dry leaves dance. The drifting clouds consumed the harvest moon and added darkness to my circumstance. Did I prepare? I knew I shouldn't stray too far from home, since probably the killer's still around. His mauling of my brother sickened all, its impact on the neighborhood profound. A fear we share. Bravado isn't normally my thing, so caution, care, concern my credo here. Was that a sound, a movement over there? Oh, an acorn from an oak tree landed near. A silly scare. Darkness can be friend or can be foe, and sudden change can be inopportune. Just 30 feet from safety and my home, the guardians of the dark disgorged the moon, and I just stare. My body froze. My heart was pounding now. My breathing stopped, for there before my eyes, the terrifying thing, that killer thing, a furry beast at least 4 times my size. His nostrils flare. He hasn't seen me yet. I must not move. To run would lead me to a nasty fate. His focus elsewhere gives me time to think. To breathe would be to hyperventilate, and I'll not dare. Then suddenly he bounds off, not toward me. Instinctively, I bolt from danger's way. The beast was chasing yet another beast, allowing me to see another day without despair. There is a moral to my tale, you see, and it revolves around our habitats. If you're a furry squirrel just like me, select a neighborhood devoid of cats, or else beware.
Oh, what a wonderful turn at the end. Thank you. That's a really fun way to end our evening tonight. Thank you all for coming. And I'll just say that we have the northern region of the PSV has a couple of more activities going on Zoom. One is tomorrow. Claudia Gary is doing a workshop called Poe and the Science of Sonnets. So we'll be looking at some of Poe's sonnets and reading some sonnets and learning about them, but then also I think she has planned for us to write a sonnet in a small group and then to start one of our own. So if that's something that interests you, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. If you are in the northern region, you probably already got my information about it today with the Zoom link. But if not, here's my email address and I can send that to you. And then we also have, featuring Steve Booker and Kathy Smaltz next week on Wednesday, the 20th. Tomorrow and next Wednesday, we're starting a little later at 7 o'clock. Tomorrow 7 to 8:30, and next Wednesday with Steve and Kathy 7 to 8. And during the Steve and Kathy Poetry of Place reading, there will also be an open mic at the end for poems that are related in some way to place. However,
Yay, us.
Say that again.
Yay, us.
Yes, yay. Yes.
Poetry of Place. Everybody tune in.
So we'd love to have you join us for one or both of those events. And if you're ever curious about what's going on in the northern region, you're welcome to email me, and I can even put you on our email list, because I guess you don't have to be in the northern region to find out about what's going on, especially if some of the activities are on Zoom. So.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy and Steve, for what you're doing here. It's fun for everybody. I think we have a lot of fun with it. And Zoe, I look forward to meeting you one of these days. I liked your poetry, and you did fine. And I have to tell you that you're the same age as my oldest great grandchild.
That's amazing. Wendell, it's nice to see you.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Zoe.
Peter, thank you for coming. I think we acknowledged others, but I really appreciate all of you. And some of you are regulars on this program, and it's really nice to have you. And we're always welcoming anybody who would like to participate.
And just so you guys know, the chat has been saved. So Ed and Zoe, you might want to take a look at that, because there are always good comments that come in about your poetry and that you might want to review later on. So take advantage of that.
And
will there be a recording?
This has been recorded, and it is just about to be saved.
Okay, and we'll share it with all of you
Yes, I appreciate
the website, and well, the usual way. Email if you don't get it, Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Miss
you.
Haley.
Thanks, everyone.
Sure.
Take care, everyone.